Last night, Sniperwolf, a massive YouTuber, showed up outside of our home, recorded a video of our home, and then posted it to her 5.6 million Instagram followers, goading me with the line, "Let's talk like adults." In this exact moment, she turned from a mere content thief to someone who doxes and stalks her critics.
Okay, so we have a few things to talk about here. There's a massive controversy on YouTube that just recently boiled over into the real world between two big YouTubers. This guy right here, named Jacksfilms, and an even bigger YouTuber who goes by the name of SSSnipewolf. This controversy involves not just the ethics of how to be a decent human being on social media, but also a number of legal issues. We've got questions about doxing, about copyrights and content thievery, about privacy claims and other civil claims, YouTube's potential liability here, as well as potential jail time. It's a cornucopia of controversy and legal issues. How's that for getting seasonal? Oh, that's such a bad joke.
Nerd alert!
Anyway, I've gotten a ton of questions on Sniperwolf's potential legal mistakes here, and in this video, I'm going to answer a few of them so that I can answer some of your most burning questions on this. Let's dive in. Okay, so this guy right here is Jacksfilms, a YouTuber. He's a pretty big one too. He's got around 5 million subscribers. He's been creating content on the platform for around 17 years, and one of the things he's been known for is criticizing other content creators and artists for stealing from other smaller creators who aren't really in a position to effectively advocate for themselves.
So I took some of his videos and played them side by side and confirmed that yes, Jason Derulo 100% reuses his own footage across multiple videos. How do you make reacting, which is easily the laziest subgenre of YouTube, even lazier? Some poor editor is just copying and pasting Jason Derulo's footage across multiple videos.
And the big creator he's most vocally critical of these days is this YouTuber. This is SSSnipewolf. She's got around 33 million subscribers on YouTube. She's massive. She's a megastar on YouTube. And the thing she's most known for is doing reactions to TikTok videos.
Bro just flew into the hoop. No! What's wrong with you?
Now, don't let the simplicity of this content fool you. She's made tons of money from it. And when I say tons, I mean millions of dollars. But it's come at a price, and that price is criticism. That criticism centers on the complaint by many people who are saying that she's essentially stealing other creators' work, not giving them credit, and even sometimes going so far as to crop out the videos so that it specifically doesn't show any watermark that would help viewers to be able to find the original owner of the content. And this criticism sometimes also comes from those smaller creators who say that she never reached out to them to ask for permission to use their content, nor did she ever give them credit when using it.
Did Sniperwolf or anyone from her team reach out to you asking for permission or like a fee or just even a shout out? Nothing.
Nothing at all. Not even like a, hey, we featured you, nothing.
And YouTube has never really acted on any of these complaints. So after voicing criticism over this kind of behavior, Jacksfilms decided to go a different route. He created a separate Reacts channel. This channel was dedicated to reacting to Sniperwolf's React videos. He calls it Jacksfilms, clearly a nod to SSSnipewolf. It's basically Reactception. But while Sniperwolf's React videos appear to be made basically for entertainment purposes, Jacksfilms' React videos were clearly intended to be commentary and critique of Sniperwolf's videos. And not only that, but also a critique of the system in which her videos appear that allow her to basically take advantage of all of these other smaller creators. Now, she disputes that. She says that it's all fair use, which is a defense to a copyright claim, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But I don't want to get into the weeds of copyright just yet. The point is, there's essentially been a beef stew brewing, so to speak, between Jacksfilms and Sniperwolf. She says he's harassing her with the content that he makes on his Jacksfilms channel, since it's all dedicated to singling her out.
This guy's entire channel is just me. Every single video for the past few months has been about me. And it's just like shitting on me. And then his streams. This dude is just like low-key harassing me. Like, should I get a restraining order?
And he says it's not harassment, it's critique.
She claims in her story that I've been harassing her. No, Sniperwolf, I've not been harassing you at all. In my videos on Jacksfilms, I've been critiquing her non-transformative commentary, I point out cases of content theft and freebooting, and I credit the creators she steals from.
Okay, so fast forward to recent weeks. Sniperwolf was apparently in the neighborhood and somehow got a hold of Jacksfilms' home address. So she went on Instagram, asked her 5 million Instagram followers if she should go to his house, then went to his house, after 10 p.m. by the way, took a photo and posted it to Instagram.
All right in front of your house. Come out and talk to me. He has food outside, so he should be out any minute now to pick it up.
It's ice cream as well.
It's ice cream. I just want to talk.
He was apparently live streaming when it happened, and so it immediately blew up. Although Jacksfilms is also a big YouTuber himself, his 5 million subscribers are nonetheless dwarfed by Sniperwolf's 34 million subscribers. And so many people reacting to this happening were saying there's already bad blood between these two creators, and now she's wielding her massive fan base as a weapon. This can get dangerous for Jacksfilms very quickly. And you know, there have been a number of other documented cases showing that the disclosure of someone's address or other private information can lead to very dangerous circumstances. Swatting is one of them, where someone calls the police, says that someone living at a particular address is in a scary mental state and is a danger to themselves or others, maybe has firearms. People have died when police came in response to a call like that. And so when a creator is in a public dispute with someone else and then hands this kind of information to their massive amount of followers, many of whom may have developed a bit of a parasocial relationship with that creator, it doesn't take any real imagination to start worrying about what could happen as a result. So Jacksfilms took to Twitter/X to complain about all of it and to express his fears and those of his wife, by the way, who is not a content creator but has a normal 9-to-5 job. And when he railed against Sniperwolf for doxing, Sniperwolf shot back at him that he was defaming her because she said that she didn't dox him because his home address was already on the internet. Okay, so I want to untangle this one by one, because even though this involves two big YouTubers, because of the nature of social media, realistically, I think that anyone can find themselves in at least some aspects of this kind of quagmire. And so I think it's important to straighten out some of these things so that people can understand what kind of landscape we're all operating on here. Also, obviously, all of this talk about doxing and private information being made public is terrifying, and it's best to know how to protect yourself. And that's why I'm happy that this video is sponsored by NordVPN. NordVPN is one of the leading VPN services on the market, protecting your online activity. And if you go to nordvpn.com/legalbytes, you'll get a special deal with a 30-day money-back guarantee. VPNs are crucial for keeping your data safe while you browse. This is especially true if you ever connect to Wi-Fi that isn't your home protected Wi-Fi. Anytime you go to Starbucks or an airport or a hotel, there's an opportunity to link to free Wi-Fi. But that also often means an opportunity for the internet baddies, so to speak, to get access to your private information. And this is one of the main reasons that I've been using a VPN for years now. Of course, many of you know that I've been living overseas for the last few years, and that is a big reason for why I use a VPN. But it's definitely not the only one. Sometimes when you want to stream something, certain locations will be blacked out, meaning that if you are in a particular location, you can't stream that movie or TV show or that particular sports game that you want to see. So when I'm in Southern California to visit family during baseball season, for example, I'd like to be able to see the Dodgers play. A VPN helps with that. And the same thing goes for being able to watch some movie streaming services outside of the US. And I also find that having a VPN to often be crucial in order to access some court websites, for example. And for me personally, that's important so that I can research cases to talk about on YouTube. There are just so many things that a VPN will help with, and it's not just for your desktop, by the way. With NordVPN, you can connect up to 6 devices to a single account, and that includes a mobile phone. And with NordVPN's 5,400 plus servers in 60 countries, you can truly enjoy the internet with no limits or borders. Also, and this one is a very important piece to me in order to accept a sponsorship ad deal from a VPN company, NordVPN has a strict no logs policy. This means that they don't track, collect, or share any of your private data, which ultimately means that you can use your browser truly being protected from trackers. And for viewers of this video, if you go to nordvpn.com/legalbytes, you'll receive a huge discount plus 4 bonus months for free. So be sure to check that out to protect your online browsing activity. And thanks again to NordVPN for sponsoring this video. Okay, back to the video. I asked viewers in a community post about your interest level in this overall topic, as well as some questions that you may have on this subject. And I loved the responses that I got from you guys. So as I go through the legal explanation here, I'm also going to highlight some of those questions from you guys and go through them. Okay, so first off, does this count as doxing? What even is doxing in the first place? Colloquially, doxing is basically taking someone's private information and making it public. This can include, like, say somebody's operating on social media under a pseudonym and someone finds out their legal name and then makes that public. Or maybe it's someone's date of birth, or maybe it's someone's home address. And many states also have statutes that specifically define what counts as doxing under the law. And so here's a comment from Lorea. I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Lorea wants to know how the situation fits in California laws on doxing, harassment, etc., and whether this would be a potential criminal or civil matter. So let's break it down here. Now, as Lorea mentioned, this all went down in California, so let's look to California law. Specifically, we're looking at California Penal Code Section 653.2. This is California's criminal code, and so a violation of this section could result in a fine of $1,000 or even jail time. This is the cyber harassment statute, or the doxing statute in California, and it says that in order for an act to be considered doxing, it has to meet a number of elements. First, the defendant publishes, emails, hyperlinks, or makes available for downloading the personal identifying information of another person. Second, the defendant does this by means of electronic communication. Third, the defendant does this without that person's consent. Fourth, the defendant does it for the purpose of imminently causing that other person unwanted physical contact, injury, or harassment. And finally, the defendant does it with the intent to place the other person in reasonable fear for his or her safety, or the safety of the other person's immediate family. Now, when it comes to personal identifying information, the statute says this includes electronic messages of a harassing nature about another person, which would be likely to incite or produce an unlawful action. And going a step further, it says that harassment means a knowing and willful course of conduct directed at a specific person that a reasonable person would consider as seriously alarming, seriously annoying, seriously tormenting, or seriously terrorizing that person, and that serves no legitimate purpose. Okay, so clearly we have elements 2 and 3 are met here because this was all done by social media, and it's clear that Jacksfilms did not consent to SSSnipewolf sharing his home details. Then there's elements numbers 4 and 5, which to me also appear to be met. If this were not in the context of an ongoing internet beef that's been spanning months or maybe years, there may be more of an uphill battle for proving SSSnipewolf's intent. But given that context and the fact that she showed up to his personal home, not a business address, but a home address, and she apparently did it after 10 p.m. in Los Angeles, which is a big city and one that has seen property crimes increase in recent years, if we're using basic common sense here, it's hard to see what intent she could possibly have had in pulling this stunt other than to put Jacksfilms and his family in reasonable fear for their safety. And why else would someone who's been operating on social media at a massive scale for a very long time now involve their entire massive online community in something like this, if not to invite harassment of that person? And as for the final element, I think we get there too. She made a disclosure of his home address by publishing a photo of the front of it. In my professional opinion, a photo is enough for someone else to be able to find his actual address. And apparently in the days following this whole thing, there were people supporting SSSnipewolf who were apparently using the photo to find his actual full address and were repeatedly publishing it to the internet. But the other piece of this element is the harassing nature of it. Note the two sub-elements of harassment. First, a reasonable person would find it seriously alarming, seriously annoying, seriously tormenting, or seriously terrorizing. I think that the response from many people, or maybe most people online across social media platforms, would tend to show that, yeah, a reasonable person would find it seriously alarming at the very least. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. But anyway, then there's the other element of harassment. The conduct in question has to have served no legitimate purpose. Personally, I see no legitimate purpose in showing up unannounced to someone's house after 10 p.m. if you've been in a protracted online fight for months and months and months. But hey, maybe there's something I haven't considered. Maybe there's something I don't know about their personal history together. If that's the case, let me know in the comments down below. Okay, but what about this question? Dora Claire wants to know, what about SSSnipewolf's claim that since his address was publicly available, she did nothing wrong? And what about celebrities whose addresses are often basically publicly available? Keep in mind that nowhere in any of these elements that we just went over Was there anything saying that the information that's being disclosed, that's private information, has to have been completely locked down before it was disclosed on social media? The fact that it may exist on some part of the internet does not excuse someone from further distributing that information to other parts of the internet, especially if they're delivering it directly to a group of people online who have a higher likelihood of wanting to use that information maliciously. In other words, SSSnipewolf's fans. And on the celebrity question, there actually are a lot of ways that I guess traditional celebrities will go about keeping their addresses private. Yes, these addresses do get out from time to time, and so you can find Hollywood tours where you go on a bus to visit the rich and famous. And there is public interest in these people's homes. If you saw Legal Eagle's video on this Jacksfilms SSSnipewolf situation, he went over the Streisand effect, named after Barbra Streisand. It's a fun story if you're not familiar. But for the most part, I think celebrities avoid these kinds of problems in a number of ways. These will be things like mailboxes with misleading names, forwarding addresses, as well as secret purchases of homes. When you buy a home, generally speaking, you do register the deed to your home in that county where it exists, but you don't necessarily have to put your legal name on the deed that you do register. For example, it could be a trust that you control as the trustee or an LLC that you own. And when you can register it in something like a trust or a corporation, you can also set up a number of umbrella corporations or some similar kind of entity. So there are layers to the identity of the owner of the property. I would not be surprised if celebrities routinely use these kind of tactics to build some privacy for themselves. Okay, so moving on, then there's also this question as to whether Jacksfilms is harassing SSSnipewolf with his dedicated channel, Jacksfilms. Well, remember that an essential element of harassment under this cyber harassment / doxing law is that it must serve no legitimate purpose. And here, Jacksfilms at least has the argument that first, his channel only exists in the online world. It has never involved anything or anyone finding itself in SSSnipewolf's physical presence at any point. And secondly, and probably more on the nose here, is the fact that he has a good argument as to a legitimate purpose of the existence of this dedicated channel. It comes from a frustration that YouTube isn't protecting smaller creators, and that SSSnipewolf is arguably not only taking advantage of them, but outright stealing from them with her reaction videos. Now, whether or not she is stealing from smaller creators is a question of copyright law and the question of whether or not her particular content would qualify as a fair use exception to copyright infringement. And so this addresses Mooney Slay's question, asking whether people do really own content once it's posted and shared publicly. The answer is a resounding yes. Once anything has been created that has any amount of artistic merit, and I mean really any, like a de minimis amount of artistic merit, it is copyrighted the moment that it's created. In order to enforce a copyright, it has to be registered with the US Copyright Office if you're seeking to enforce it in the United States, but that copyright technically exists the moment that it's created. For example, this video right here is my intellectual property. If someone downloads it and re-uploads it somewhere else, whether it's on YouTube or on any other social media platform, I still have the ability to bring a copyright enforcement action against them. Someone else can license my material, in which case we can work out terms for their use of it, or their use might fall under the fair use exception to copyright. I'm not going to go into too much detail on fair use in this video because, like I said, we've got a whole buffet of legal issues here already. But basically, fair use is when someone uses copyright material, but they're using it in a way that is a different experience than just watching the original work on its own. In other words, it's a transformative use. Examples of fair use can include things like using it in a news report because it's newsworthy or to give commentary on that topic. For example, my use of Jacksfilms' video in the intro of this video is fair use. I'm taking a small portion of his video to help me illustrate a timeline of events and to give my legal analysis of those events. I could go into the reasons why I actually agree with Jacksfilms when he says that SSSnipewolf's content is not fair use, but that would have to be a whole dedicated video. Now, we've got one more area that I want to go over here, and that is the question of potential liability for Instagram and YouTube, and what about their terms of service? This is especially since doxing is against YouTube's terms of service, and since YouTube basically gave SSSnipewolf essentially a slap on the wrist by giving her a temporary suspension from the platform, and we have no idea how temporary that was. Could have been an hour for all we know. Okay, so here we've got Corbin Garrett 9574 asking about YouTube's liability if anything happens to Jacksfilms as a result of someone knowing his address after this whole thing. And then we've got Fanta6789 asking about this perplexity of YouTube banning something for conduct committed on Instagram. So I'll answer these together. Basically, from the outset, know that all of these mainstream social media platforms, the big ones that we know of, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter/X, Twitch, they're pretty much all written in fairly loose terms, and there's a reason for that. It's to benefit the social media platform. By writing them in a way that is relatively vague in some parts, it gives them some space to make moderating decisions that can benefit the platform, and honestly more than the users. From a business perspective, it kind of makes sense, but from a user's perspective, it kind of sucks. But from that business perspective, if you are going to build a platform for other people to use as part of your business, why would you, as the business owner, voluntarily give away power to make business decisions if you're not legally required to do so? So where these terms of service are vague, know that it allows the social media platform to come to a decision on something, and that vagueness in the TOS gives them the freedom to base that decision on any number of business-related factors. So when SSSnipewolf got her temporary suspension from YouTube for her content on Instagram, I'm speculating here, but this probably could have been someone at YouTube essentially saying, look, we got a lot of anger on social media over this, and she did technically violate the rules, but she does also bring in a lot of money to YouTube, so kicking her off the platform entirely isn't exactly great for YouTube's bottom line. So, because she's valuable to YouTube, arguably she does have a little bit of a protected status here. This is unfortunately the nature of business sometimes. As for the rest of us, we don't have to like it, but we kind of have to live with it. Okay, now what about this cross-platform conduct part? Technically, she doxed him on Instagram, not on YouTube, but YouTube gave her a temporary suspension. Well, every single one of these social media platforms includes a provision in their terms of service that says that you can get booted from the platform for any conduct that violates the rules, whether that conduct is committed on the platform or off the platform. And that's why, for example, Russell Brand's entire YouTube channel reportedly got demonetized. I think permanently demonetized by YouTube after an article came out accusing him of SA from years ago. YouTube's terms of service is written broadly enough to allow them to do that. But now, what about YouTube's potential liability here? What if something happens to Jacksfilms as a result of all this? And what if Jacksfilms decides to sue YouTube to try to force them to enforce their TOS, for example, and to essentially kick SSSnipewolf off the platform permanently? Well, this is where one of my favorite legal topics comes in. Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. If you want to laugh at me for my earlier performances on YouTube, you can check out the early days of Legalbytes, where I give a full rundown on the complete history and full explanation of Section 230. But in a nutshell, this is the law that allows social media platforms the ability to moderate or not moderate content the way that they see fit, and with very robust legal immunity. I mean, people have tried to sue social media platforms for all kinds of harms that have resulted from someone's use or misuse of the social media platform, to include terrorism, by the way. And for the most part, the United States Supreme Court has found on a regular basis that social media platforms are generally untouchable. This is one reason why there are many calls to reform Section 230. And actually, both sides of the political spectrum have generally agreed that they want it to be reformed. But how it gets reformed is very strongly contested depending on if someone is on the right or on the left, generally speaking. So fortunately or unfortunately, YouTube would probably not face any kind of liability from this. Now, moving forward, Jacksfilms does have a number of options ahead of him. Now, I don't give legal advice here, and I do sincerely hope that he has been talking to legal counsel behind the scenes. But I will say that if something like this does happen to anyone, it generally is a good idea to file a police report to get everything on the record, especially in case anything ever happens to further escalate these things. And there are civil lawsuit options as well. I don't know if he could successfully sue for invasion of privacy. Legal actually gave a pretty good rundown of that in his video on this whole topic. But he could have a pretty good claim for something like intentional infliction of emotional distress. That basically is where someone has done something objectively outrageous. It's directed specifically at another individual, and the person that engaged in that conduct did so intentionally, specifically in order to create emotional harm for that other person. And that sounds like something that Jacksfilms could potentially pursue. But those are my thoughts. What do you guys think about this whole thing? Leave me all your thoughts in the comments down below. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this, or at least found it interesting or informative. And if you did, I would love it if you could hit the like button. It does help us with those YouTube algorithm gods. And if you are new here and you want to see more content like this, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can find out when the next video is uploaded. See you in the next one.